Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Remembering Podcast, episode 185. I'm Sarah Poet. It is so good to be here with you today. We are going to be talking about productivity and the shadow masculine. Productivity and the shadow masculine in women. Like, this is specifically a conversation with women. And context for how this topic came to be is that we were recently talking in the structure and flow group call that we were having about the shadow side of productivity. And this is the gorgeous epiphany that women have when they're doing structure and flow. So, structure and flow is this 90-day system that I have to really revolutionize your time and energy. If you know me at all, if you're new to my work, hello, hello. I am super passionate about women's energy, feminine energy, the way we work, the way we relate to others. If we're sovereign in our agreements, in our exchanges, and, so many women are feeling burnout on so many different levels. Like, we could talk about burnout for hours and days, but every single woman knows what that feels like. And every woman knows what it feels like to overextend, to overgive energy, and to work super, super hard, but not feel like the respect or the recognition is coming back our way. And we are healing that. Like, we're literally changing that with our very lives. And this is what I'm so interested in helping women to do, because we have to value our resources. We have to name what those feminine resources are. You'll hear me talk about this a lot. If this is interesting you, please know I'll put in a little plug here. I'm thinking of reopening my resource container. It's a group 8-week journey. It's also in source energetics. It's like we're resourcing, we're going back to source to really amp up those feminine resources. So this is my work where we define what those 8 feminine resources are, and we go to source to amplify those resources, right? So that's coming up in May. We've been doing structure and flow since January. And we are talking about those 8 feminine resources in structure and flow. But structure and flow really looks at the resource of time and time allocation and how we use our energy, or said differently, like the quality of our energy in the time that we have, right? Because we're all like, we have so many hours in a day, we have the energy that we have. And then what we can do is to really amplify the quality of that time, of the energy, of how we feel, of the things that we engage in, et cetera, et cetera. So many women are in the habit of being very productive. Now, there's a light and shadow to productivity, or I'll say there's, positive and negative productivity. Obviously, we need to be productive. We need to take action. We need to get things done, right? This is not like some kind of idea that we're just going to like sit back and the universe is going to plop everything that we need at our feet. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like, we need to do something. We need to engage. We need that young energy in our lives. Like, we need to do that. But where does that come from? What is the impetus, right? That's what I want to talk about in this episode. I want to break down some of like the inner feminine and masculine, the inner dynamic, the inner shadow dynamic that's going on. And then if I can do this episode well, I think I'm going to bridge this out quite nicely, where you could have this aha moment by the end that's like, whoa. So, all right, let's look at the relationship of women to the masculine archetype. Now, this is a can of worms, and you will hear me talk about a woman's relationship to the masculine archetype within herself. So we all have inner feminine, inner masculine, right? That's where we're going to focus today. But a woman also has that external relationship dynamic with the masculine. So the masculine in men or in others, right? And then she has her relationship with the masculine divine. All three of those, it's very important that a woman on a conscious journey of reunification, of stepping into her sovereignty and her wholeness, that she address the masculine on all of those layers and levels. Now, that is the work of a lifetime. Like, we are repairing the planetary energetics of feminine and masculine. And any woman who's really doing this work, you're going to really look at what your relationship is with the masculine on all three of those levels. Okay. But for today, I want to look at our relationship to the masculine as it applies to how we use our energy. So, what is our inner masculine doing? And also, how is that, the society, what we learned about work, what, those archetypal messages that we took and we received into, like, we just assume certain ways of work, certain ways of being as a result of being in a culture. So there's some enculturation that happens with women and work where, if you want to succeed, if you want to bring something forward, if you want to climb a workplace ladder, if you want to be an entrepreneur, right? There are these ways that society has laid out for you to be quote unquote successful. Now, in this podcast over the last few months, I've really been talking about structures and the fall of the old structures, the birthing of the new structures. This is happening through us, and this is happening through women's remembrance. So what we know about the existing structures is that they're not kind to the feminine system. They're not kind to the woman who is like working so hard, maybe like alongside men in a workplace that devalues emotional wisdom, or has you work like 12-hour days without kindness to the body system, right? And these are the systems within which women will quote unquote burn out, right? Because like they're so unsustaining, because they don't even consider feminine energy. So it's worth saying right here that what happens here, like as women start to remember feminine and masculine, right? Because we're in these systems and then we're like, wait a second, this isn't working. And then this is what happened for me. Like some of us find these words, right? Feminine and masculine archetypes. Oh, wait, I remember that now there's this feminine archetype and it's been repressed. And here I've been trying to succeed in a system that doesn't even value that, doesn't even incorporate that. So what does that look like, right? And then the very first thing that happens with so many women is that the feminine comes to represent rest. I would say there are two things that the feminine comes to represent: rest and intuition. So in the like beginning of awakening, the feminine equates to rest and like reincorporating rest into the ways that we work and live, and intuition, because we realize like there are other ways of knowing. I recently did an episode on feminine ways of knowing, I believe. So you can check that out. So here, let's focus on this rest thing for a moment. The feminine is so much more than rest. So when we have a culture that is so overstimulating and so aligned with old-fashioned masculine ways of working that we need to like recover from it, the feminine did not just come to recover from an abusive system, like period. That is not what we're doing. We are not just surviving in these abusive systems. Like, we're literally recrafting the systems with our lives and with our remembrance, which is so exciting. So in the beginning, we think, oh, I need to rest more, because we totally do. If we're burnt out, right, we need to recoup. We need to come into right relationship with rhythms, with our nervous system, with like being okay, just being okay, right? Like, so many women are on such a hyperdrive, overdrive, like constantly in this yang orientation. I'm saying yang is like the penetrative outward masculine, that actionable masculine. So what is then the yin? The yin is not just rest. The yin is deep stillness. The yin is a well of wisdom. So if we're talking about the feminine that has been suppressed, oppressed over time, this is where we're talking about deep, deep remembrance. And we just, there are so many ways to get into relationship with that, but primarily, yes, stillness is needed. Cultivating feminine ways of knowing are needed, right? So this is important, and I'm going to come back to this here in a moment, because this place is actually the place that we take action from. Okay, this is very important. This place is the place that should really bring the wisdom forward about what needs to happen. This is like the feminine wisdom that has been covered up, the feminine wisdom that, we're not even like really in touch with, A, because we're busy, B, because we're in those old systems, C, because we haven't remembered. We don't even have this relationship with the feminine on this wide scale. And forgive me for saying so, but I'm going to be really honest here. Like, there's so much surface level feminine remembrance right now that, like, this is not, you go pole dance and do some embodiment, and yeah, you remember something, but you're not necessarily like in the depth of your feminine wisdom, right? You go to a retreat, you get some oracle cards, you follow these like really successful people who have written like spiritual books and written oracle cards. This is not a deep feminine practice necessarily in and of itself, right? These are like breadcrumbs on your own journey of deep, deep cultivation and remembrance. And I'm talking like, we choose what breadcrumbs that we're going to kind of follow and pick up along the path of this remembrance. Like, we need one another to sprinkle the breadcrumbs and to remember, right? But then there's like, what does your soul call you to? What are you deeply interested in? What information, what intuition are you getting from your own meditations, from your dreams? What does your soul call you to do, right? This is where we start to access this deep, deep feminine wisdom and new earth code, which I'm so passionate about. I'm always saying the answers to where we're going in the future are inside of modern women. They are. But we have to deconstruct the false systems, and we have to really deepen into our own wisdom. Okay. This is like deep and long and true work and ways of being, and really a way of life, right? It's not a consumable. It's not a book. It's not a consumable. It is a way of life where you have repatterned and cultivated the capacity to hold space for your own feminine. This is very important. I hope I'm getting this point across, right? So you go there over and over and over again, and like, you go into these unknown places, you reclaim, you remember. Okay. And yeah, I think it's perfect that the conversation is going this way, because it's from there that we know the next action step. So you can feel the difference here between if you stay in hyper productivity, even if you're like an entrepreneur, even if you say that you get this, right? There are so many female entrepreneurs who are talking about regulated nervous systems or remembering the feminine and balance with the masculine. And I can say this because I myself have been this person, right? Where we know the words and the concepts, and yet the way we're actually working is still tied to, almost like enslaved to, these old systems and structures. And we know that it's not the way that we want it to be. We know that we're exhausted. We know that there's this burnout. We know that there's got to be something different. And yet, like, what are those new ways of work going to be? This is something that I've really been asking myself over the last few years, and really closely attuning to my energy and looking at my energy as guide, like looking at my own, meditations and intuitions, and what are the visuals that I'm getting in the meditations. Well, then it's like literally showing me the direction, the ways to go, right? So the alignment and the attunement to that, and trusting that as a guide for life. Okay. So in the old structures, we had old paradigm, masculine and feminine. Okay. And here's where there are imbalances. There are these cultural archetypes that connect to things like power dynamics, and, someone has power, someone doesn't. All of those things that were truly like implanted in the culture for so many hundreds, even thousands of years, that are not natural. They are not a part of the template of original creation, right? It's like they're programs, they're implants in our collective consciousness that, it's like one gender is supposed to have power of another. Like, that is insane, right? It's like, that's not true. That would not be the design of creation, right? So we start to remember things like this, and like the current archetypes within the structures are skewed. Okay, so we have some examples of, let's say, masculine. Now, if I ask any women on the street what their associations with masculine are, we're going to get all kinds of answers from, like, maybe your father was a good guy. Maybe your father was he did not have his stuff together and he hurt you. People would probably mention like domineering behavior or toxic masculinity, like all of these things get thrown around out there. So this is why it's really important for us to remember our own true and sacred relationship with the masculine, like literally bringing back creation's archetype of the masculine by remembering it in our hearts and doing our healing work. So in the collective archetype, unfortunately, we associate the masculine archetype with a lot of overworking, a lot of domination, a lot of like drive without pause, drive without consideration of the whole, drive for profit, right? Taking what is needed in order to like make profit or reach a goal. So how we want to work, what kind of relationship we want with the masculine in the ways that we work, you can hear and begin to see that this becomes something really important for us to get conscious about, right? Okay, so I want to move into this point about productivity here. And this is going to be a shorter podcast because I have a time limit today. So when our relationship with the masculine is still skewed or is still in the old paradigm, or like one foot in the old paradigm, or we have not really cleared our relationship with the masculine, when we ourselves are experiencing like a dominator effect of masculine archetype in our own energy, we're going to be in productivity. We're going to orient our work toward productivity. I'm going to say that again, and then I'm going to contrast it. When we as women have not yet healed our relationship, our inner relationship with the masculine and our cultural relationship with the masculine, and that shadow masculine association is still saying, get your stuff together, make a profit, do it at all costs. It's like to-do list oriented. It's just the task. It's like you wake up in the morning and you think, what do I have to do today? Right? And then you go about using your energy toward completing as many things on that list as you can. You might say, well, Sarah, that's life. And just keep listening, because there might be another way for you to look at this. So I'm saying, and I'm willing to be wrong, that when you orient your life that way, there's still this shadow masculine component. And don't worry, we all have like aspects of that. There's a lot of like, you won't be safe unless you do this. You won't be productive. You won't be successful. You won't get your stuff done unless you use your energy like this. Then you'll be left behind. Then you won't have the money. Then you won't get it built, right? So when we're orienting in that way, and it's productivity first, I'm saying that shadow masculine, okay? And for us to use our energy in that way as women is extremely limiting, extremely limiting. And if you are a woman on a soul path and a soulful entrepreneur path, and things are not moving forward for you, this could be the exact ticket, okay? Because you're trying super fucking hard. I know, because I've been there. And like things aren't actually moving forward, even though you're being super productive. This, what I'm about to say next, could actually be the spark that changes your life. I hope that it is. I hope, because that would be so worthwhile for me making this podcast. All right. If this happens, please reach out to me. Email sarah@sarahpoet.com and be like, oh my God, this was a light bulb moment, because I want to celebrate with you. So we need to move from productivity to creativity. And I'm mapping this out for you pretty simply by telling you that if you move from shadow masculine and actually just like tell the masculine to step aside for a moment, and then you move into this deep yin relationship, cultivate your deep feminine awareness, like your nature-based feminine awareness, your soul connection, your connection with why you came, your purpose, right? If you cultivate your relationship with stillness and the feminine, not just rest, not the I'm going to pass out because I'm so fucking exhausted after grinding myself all day, not that. But you have actually changed the way you use your time so that you prioritize hearing from your yin, hearing from your feminine, your like innate, the mothering, the intuition, the wisdom, the things the world has not seen yet. And you go there first. That feminine is going to tell you what is needed next. And that, my friends, is the energetic of creativity, not just productivity. So in Structure and Flow recently, I took us through a visual where there was, the inner masculine and the inner feminine. And we were like having a little conversation with each of these in meditation. And what I saw for me was the inner masculine was standing there like, tell me what to do. Just, it was like he had his hammers and his nails like ready. And he was like, I want to be in service. I want to work for you. I want you to tell me what to do. This, my friends, is the rightful direction. It is the rightful direction. I may have shared this on the podcast before. I believe that I have. It may not have even been very long ago. But I was in a peace pipe ceremony. I mean, it's incredible that I even started a sentence that way, right? Like such a blessing, with Pat McCabe, who is a Dene elder. And this was in 2019 in Pennsylvania. And just very briefly, the women who were bleeding were sent up on the hill to like meditate and to vision while the peace pipe ceremony was going on a little bit lower. And whatever anyone had to say as a result of the peace pipe ceremony, it was great. It was heard, right? But the women who had been bleeding were brought down into the center of the circle, and they were asked, what did you vision? What did you see during this process? And whatever they visioned was given the most value. It was like the wisdom, right? For the circle. So that gives me chills to talk about. So you can feel that there's this innate feminine reverence, that to say that we've lost it is like a vast understatement, right? But we bring this back through our own cultivation and the ways that we use our own energy. So are we in right, respectful relationship with our own inner feminine and our own inner masculine? For example, if we're looking out into the collective and we want to criticize something like masculinity, that happens all the time. But we also internalize systems of oppression in the ways that we use our own energy. So if you don't even know what your feminine energy is, or even know what your feminine intuition is saying, and you're so buried under overworking and productivity, my friend, you are not being sustainable to your own resources. You are not being, it's oppressive to your own feminine, but it's also deeply taking advantage of your own feminine. So how are we going to heal feminine oppression, or, the lack of respect for feminine voices, or, getting paid for women's work, all of these things? How are we going to fix that in the collective if you are still running your own woman body into the fucking ground in exhaustion every single day? Just expecting it to just like wake up and serve, wake up and serve, wake up and serve, and not even respecting the resources that you have been given. It starts within. It starts within. We heal these systems of extraction and oppression and just like this utter lack of respect for feminine gift. We heal it through our own remembrance and prioritizing it in our own lives. This is not something that the external is going to do for you. And if you think that the external structures are going to change voluntarily to even begin to understand this, fuck that. Like, I'm sorry if your children are in the room, and I just swore a few times. But this changes when women recognize these things, when we make these shifts in the ways that we use our own energy. Okay. And that shift, just to say it again, the shift from the productivity mindset where I have to do, just recognize there that your own inner masculine could be in a shadow orientation there, right? You're still running some old programs there. So cultivate the depth of your feminine, listen to the feminine, trust your intuition to do that, learn to do that. You can reach out to me if you want to work with me to do that. But we're going to really cultivate your access to the truth of who you are, to your soul's knowing, to those deep, deep yin truths that might even sound a little bonkers in the world, because like the world is like, you said what? Like this is very different from what I'm used to hearing. Well, yes. I'm over here in my feminine. You all haven't remembered that yet. So, welcome to the new era, right? So we are remembering and showing the world the way forward. This is going to build new structures. This is going to create more unity. This is like the, heart-based living, etc. And final thought, when we change this in our own businesses, in the ways that we work, we are being given information from creation about what to do next. So we're going into this yin place, into this deep space of creation. The feminine is creation, y'all. This is what we're doing. So we go into this deep space of creation, and then we get the do this next. And then that inner masculine that wants to help, that wants to take action, that wants to like put something into the world, it can get to work on the vision that we've received from creation itself. That is effective. It is not the same energetic as productivity. Productivity is cut off from this deep feminine creational space. So go to the feminine first. Feminine first. Repattern your life. Repattern the way you relate to these inner feminine, inner masculine archetypes, relate to your own feminine energy, right? And then become creational. And I have just given you a very, very big tip. I'm telling you, a very big tip. And then what we begin to access in those creational spaces, I mean, that is the stuff that changes worlds, right? That's where we're going in my energy events. You can subscribe at sarahpoet.com to get updates on the energy events. And then every once in a while, once a quarter or so, we open up a group process around these teachings that have come through me in those creational spaces. These downloads, these curricula for really activating this information within you. And I believe that resource is going to be next, which is all about the innate feminine resources, our own connection with source, building our light body in connection with the earth and source, and doing all of that as the basis for our abundance and our earthly resources as well. So please subscribe at sarahpoet.com. I will be back soon with another episode. If this has touched you, please share it with a friend. Please forward this on and spread the word for more women in this global awakening. So much love. See you next time.